AM 970 WSTX presents Straight Talk.
Right now, we've got the songbird of the airwaves. It's Cassandra Dunn. We're still missing her voice on the radio, making us feel more comfy and also at home and relaxed when the power goes out. And when the power comes back, we know who to say thanks to, whose voice having an effect on calming the linemen and making sure that they're safe out there and otherwise getting us hooked back up. Yes, Cassandra Dunn, we miss you. Okay?
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Doug. Thank you. But, we know who used to do the really hard work.
Yeah,
my brother's out there on the line.
On the line.
At some point, there were women linemen, too. So
yes,
for those
yes. And, I tell the guys out there, so make no joke. Don't think that lineman work is woman work. It's strong people work. And they got strong women out there. I noticed one young lady, she was at WAPA, she's now with ICC. I mean, she take on anybody and getting up that pole, okay? And I hope your ego isn't fragile because she won't beat you. She's good.
Good work.
But it's also about safety, and we're so glad that they're out there.
Absolutely.
Well, I know that you're here in your bodyguard duty to make sure that Doug is well taken care of, that WSTX doesn't lock him up in here too long. I'm glad to have you here. But today I also have a nice treat in the process because you brought with you Gloria I. Joseph. Can I inquire as to what the I stands for after you do your introduction? If it's a big secret, that's okay. The mic is all yours.
Good afternoon, Doug, and thank you for having me on your stellar program. So, what is it that you want me to do today?
First of all, just be you. That's the most important thing, okay? Just be you. So is the I a secret?
Well, I tell people it stands for intelligentsia, but that's about as far as I go.
Okay, fantastic. Anyhow, I see that you've been busy.
Extremely so.
All right. And you have the proof of process here with you today for everyone to look at and say, hey, this is an inspiration. She can do it, and she can lead the way. Then I need to pay attention. Maybe I can follow up with something complimentary as we come down the road here to keeping a record, a written record. Everybody gets so caught up today with technology. You can pick up the phone. You can do a quick video. You can pull out the video recorder, formally the camera, take a picture. But the power of the spoken word is buttressed and on a foundation of the written word. Because long after the voice is gone, the written word remains.
Absolutely.
All right. So tell us a little bit about this labor of love that you have been doing here.
Well, let me begin with the title. The title of the book is The Wind is Spirit. The Life, Love, and Legacy of Audre Lorde. Now, the title itself is, I found to be very inspirational because many people comment on the fact that the wind is spirit, and they associate that with a certain degree of spirituality. So that in itself invites readers. The second part, The Life, Love, and Legacy of Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde is a person whose name should be known, well, it is known worldwide, but it should be projected beyond the realm of just being a poet. In addition to being a poet, this woman is, I put her in a realm of philosophers, a poetic genius, a sage, and a visionary. So that that's a brief beginning as to who this woman was. The book itself has met with such a positive, the reception has been so positive, it really is beyond my expectations. And as I hear people comment about it, I begin to understand. I now know why. Because what this book does, number one, it's a different genre. Most biographies, autobiographies, are simply that. I call this a bioanthology because that's exactly what it is. It's a biography of Audre Lorde and also is an anthology. The anthology part simply means that I have over 50 persons who contributed to the making of this book. The reason for that is because a few months prior to Audre's death, she asked if I would do her biography, and I consented. And I asked her, what is it that we want this biography to do? And in her words, this is what her response was. To leave a story of who I am in all my complexity and to make the quality of my life so irresistible that other people will share my visions. I really want people to know how hard I tried with what I have. I also want them to know that I play with toys in the bathtub and can be stubborn as a mule, which sometimes puts me in good standing and other times not. I'm talking about enabling a person to be the best that they can be. Here's the way I did it, and it's not a question of following, it's like a poem. And I believe passionately in the power of poetry. A poem doesn't tell you how to act and how to feel. It inspires something inside of you. So I would like my life to inspire black women, all people, actuality, in a particular way. So that is what she wanted her biography to do, to show people that to be the best that they can, and to share her vision in terms of how you can be the best that you can in whatever field that you are in.
Well, I listened to you as you read that, and I'll tell you exactly what went through my mind. That's my kind of people. Because that's how I want to live my life in that context, because you can't go through life trying to please everybody, trying to be what everybody else thinks you should be, or that's not life. That's a kind of servitude.
Right.
And you know, and I say that because as we interact with the younger ones and try to guide them, one of the most important things I tell them, for instance, I said, you got to find out what it is you want to do in life, but make sure it's something what you want to do. Don't get stuck in a job you can't stand unless it's just to pay for doing the things that you want to do the rest of the time.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, those are very, very powerful words. Very powerful words.
So what after hearing that and digesting it, I thought the best way to fulfill her wishes was to have a variety and a diversity of people tell about their experiences, their memories, their interaction with her. In so doing, they would create a profile of who this woman was and how she impacted their lives. So they could demonstrate how they were impacted by her words and additionally try to do the best they can from her inspiration. But before I go into the more details about the contributors, and there were 50 of them, wide range, wide variety, black, white, young, old, gay, straight, tall, thin, and from a diversity of places, from Germany, New Zealand, Midwest California, London, and all these were people that she impacted. And of course, the question comes up, who is this woman that could do all that? Well, in the beginning of the book, Doug, I liken Audre Lorde to renowned males like Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, the Dalai Lama, and Malcolm X. Now, people at first said, what are you talking about? But let me say, for example, When you hear Martin Luther King's name, you think of, okay, great male black leader. And I have a dream, and as you know, we're still trying to fulfill that dream. When you hear Mahatma Gandhi, you think of some type of resistance. When you hear Malcolm X, you know, we think of a great leader. These are all, and Dalai Lama, what he stood for. These are all males, and they were philosophers. Can we put into that realm any woman? Here we have an Afro-Caribbean black woman, and listen to some of her quotes that are known throughout the world. The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. Now this came from some of her writings and her sagacious vision. And we can see that played out today in Marco Rubio. He tried to use Trump's tools and it was a disaster. Another of her sayings, your silence will not protect you. And then we come, survival does not come from forcing different pieces into a false writing. There's no hierarchy of oppression. Now that's such a deep saying, and people like to say, well, how oppressed they were and how oppressed they were. There's no hierarchy. Each person's oppression depends on their circumstances and their experiences. And a quote that I like the best is, wherever the bird with no feet flew, she found a tree with no limbs. And to me, that's one of the deepest philosophical thoughts. Just think about it. What does it mean?
All right. Yeah.
So that's why I liken this woman to those type of persons, individuals, the males that I spoke of. And I'm sure you recall, Doug, months ago when this black male, first gay male to openly enter the football league, and there was a elderly white Texan sportscaster who spoke about that, and he used one of Audre Lorde's phrases about differences. That's how widespread her comments, thoughts, and visions are. So that's why in this book, I project her beyond. There's about 7 words people always like to say, oh, Audre Lorde, the black, the feminist, the mother, the poet. She's far beyond that.
Well, we're going to be taking a little break here, but in the process of going out, one of those sayings, I think that every Virgin Islander, in terms of some of the issues we have going on here, I'm going to borrow one of her phrases, your silence will not protect you. Thank you. We'll be back in a minute.
Islands, AM 970 WSTX.
All right, we're back. And as myself and Holland Redfield often bemoan that sometimes the best conversation is in the breaks.
Absolutely.
And nothing X-rated, nothing that we would have to hide or otherwise have the station censure us for. No, it's just good conversation. It's just that we have to take a break and make sure that the station stays the station so we can have this platform.
Absolutely.
All right, so I've got Gloria Joseph here, accompanied by the songbird of the airwaves, Cassandra Dunn, and we're talking about Wind is Spirit, the book launch, love, life, and everything else about Audre Lorde. All right. And at the end, before we took a break, I talked about one of Audre Lorde's saying that just resonated with me. Your silence will not protect you. When you see things going on in your community, and for some reason you convince yourself that silence is the best way to go, rest assured, your silence will not protect you. In fact, what it does is make you more vulnerable. Okay? And who have ears to hear, let them hear, and we move on. Okay, coming back. Doug, get off the platform. You're not the guest here today, Doug. Get off. Well, I know you're going to tell some more about the book, but as I was so kindly chastised earlier, Gloria Joseph is a work, a discussion, an otherwise talent in and of her own self. So please do give us a little bit of that along the way. I understand that this book as an accomplishment and all the connections that you have, it's important, but please don't leave out the Gloria Joseph for the rest of us part also. Okay?
I'll try.
Okay.
Oh, a bit more about the book, however. See, Audre Lorde is an Afro-Caribbean woman. She was, her parents are from Grenada and Carriacou, and she was raised during the Depression, and her father was what was called a race man, which is in a positive sense because he stood up for, black justice, black rights, etc. And she was raised in Harlem, and experienced the economic difficulties during the Depression, as well as the racism. However, she was able to overcome that, and largely because of her the poetic genius in her. For example, she would describe situations and using her poetry rather than actual words. Her life was turbulent and some triumphant, and that is the autobiographical part of the book. I just want to hit some of the highlights of the book, however, would be the section called The Scattering of Her Ashes. And they're mainly scattered in 4 different places. Berlin, Germany is where she went for her treatment because she's a cancer survivor. And she survived by going to Germany and working with a homeopathic doctor, which prolonged her life. She lived 70 years with liver cancer, which is unheard of. So some of her ashes were spread in a lake in Germany, Kumalanka, and because that's where she loved to row her boat as exercise and entertainment in Germany. Another part is right here in St. Croix, because she loved to snorkel along the reef, so we went out in a boat with her ashes, and one of our local contributors, Janice Schrader, she was among the group, and she did, songs she sang was Eyes on the Sparrow, and Janice was the one to perform the rituals because among the group she was the most formal religious one among the group. And she is a contributor to the book, so in the section on the scattering of her ashes. And her ashes were also scattered in Hawaii, 2 places in Hawaii, because during a trip there we were visiting Pele's crater, and Pele is the goddess of fire in Hawaii, and I'm sure most of you know about the Canton crater in Hawaii. And as we were visiting, Audre said, I would like some of my ashes to be scattered there, and I calmly agreed. So sure enough, after her death, and some of her ashes were scattered in Pele's crater. And that's a very dramatic episode in the book. We were accompanied by Sonia Sanchez, the world-known poet, who's also the poet laureate of Pennsylvania at this time. So that section is extremely interesting and interesting, I'll say. And the second site in Hawaii was also called a women's place, where women go for healing, birthing, and meetings, etc. And that in itself is an interesting story because a highway was going right through the area where the women's place was, but via protests and activism, the highway was routed around the women's place, so it's still there, and that's where some of her ashes are scattered. And another highlight of the book was the fact that this Afro-Caribbean black woman was instrumental in the 3 major social movements of the century: the women's movement, the black movement, and the gay liberation movement. She was played a central role in all 3 of those liberations, and that too is featured and mentioned in the book. So those are just a few of the highlights that I want to mention and entice people to learn more about this woman and the work that she did.
As I listen to you, one of the things that's going through in my mind is we all have to make sure that we live life, not just be alive, that we live life. And I know a few workaholics around the place, and you got to talk to them, and they still don't listen. It's like, hey, you know, we ain't dead, they done it. The work going to be there. Somebody else going to come to replace you and keep right on. You have to live life. And what I'm hearing based on what you're telling me is that she lived her life. Even unto death, she lived her life and had a plan for her life even after she wasn't there. And it's instructive to all of us because in the end, your life is a kind of a book, written or unwritten. And in that sense, it's instructive to others who maybe have the opportunity to read or read into your life. So that's what I hear when I listen to all of those things that you said, is that she lived life. Oh yeah, and on a more frivolous side, I call it frivolous, and a lot of us as younger folks, we go off to learn about the rest of the world. I knew more about the United States and the rest of the world than I knew about the island where I grew up. Of course, I've been hard at work ever since to turn that around, and then I extrapolate that out into the Caribbean. There's so much to learn, and there's so much history to learn. So it's important that we have this book to help take us there.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is not the time for me to get started on education in the Virgin Islands, but I certainly could have a lot to say about it. I will say this, though. 5 years ago, I wrote to the Board of Education, people and administrators, and said we should begin in the elementary grades teaching Chinese and Arabic, because Chinese is going to be the language, and you know what's happening throughout the Middle East. The response was, I call it kind of a bogus response, was that we don't have the teachers. Well, you can take someone who teaches Chinese, who speaks Chinese, and teach them how to teach. That's why I call it a bogus excuse. This was 5 years ago. Now, if they had started then, we would have several classes of Virgin Islanders speaking Chinese and Arabic. But no attention was paid to it.
Well,
I still have the letter that I sent to them, and this is the one instance I'm talking about in terms of the education system not being responsive to progressive thought.
Well, I've mentored to quite a few students who were contemplating what they're going to do in terms of after high school. And one of the things I tell them is to learn Chinese. And of course, they give me this strange look, like, why Chinese? I said, well, I give an analogy to a function I participated in where everybody else was selling chicken and rice. And I brought my rudimentary, in for that time compared to now, digital camera, and we took pictures of people and printed it out and sold them. I said, because in the end, whose white rice is better than whose white rice? If you're going to compete on the level of sameness, there's no way to distinguish. But if you go into something very different, you will thrive. And I said, you look at a country that has billions of people, basically, and that are making the inroads in economics that they're making. Our businesses here, our major corporations are going to need ambassadors and people to go to and man their offices in the places like China. And whether you're white, black, pink, or green, you will be something special as an American business envoy, so to speak. You will be special. That's right. Even more special to the extent that let's say in the case of if you're black or Hispanic, in their eyes, it's not the typical American. So there are possibilities that come by being different. So Chinese is one of those areas. Now you want to talk about education. When I went through the system, there were no computers in the school. And it's totally by accident many years later that I got exposed to computers that I realized that I missed something. I missed something. And in a sense, my community let me and a whole lot of other people down because we were still back in the circle of reading, writing, arithmetic in this little myopic way of looking at it. Because reading, writing, and arithmetic are all part of computers. You don't take one away from the other. But if they really want to do it, and you have to have a solution or be able to offer a solution. But if they really want us to progress in that area, then start putting video games in Chinese in the VINGN centers. Our kids going out to school, our kids will learn Chinese because they'll learn those games. So you find the tool, the vehicle, so that you can remove all of the red tape of the bureaucracy. Let them do it naturally because they want to play that game. And it's like, oh, that's what that means? Okay. And all of a sudden, we'll have children who can speak Chinese.
That's right.
Or Arabic, if you want to do it that way. But you got to do it different. If you think in the context, I must have a physical teacher who must be able to master the language, well, how many of them are we going to find? The fact of the matter is there aren't enough to go around. So you use these tools that you say are stealing your children away. You repurpose them.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just like rap music. Rap music can be beautiful and it can be as nasty as it can get. But you know what? If you as the parent and the community don't listen, and by listening also monitor and regulate what the children listen to, then they're free to listen to whatever and be taken every place except where they should have a foundation. Come back to education in the same context. So, anyhow, so I'll do more than criticize. I'll come up with some ideas how we can get over the hurdle without having to have millions of dollars. Get those video games that the children will take care of, not the books that they abuse. The games that they take care of because they want to come back the next day and play it again. And so you got to use a different approach.
You got to pique their interest. Whatever their interest is, use that as the basis for them to learn, to open up their minds.
I'm going to shut up here in a second. I'm talking too much, but I just have to give a little example. I have a son, and let's say around age 5 and 6, he was on YouTube, and he liked watching this cartoon with Mater and all of these other cars, the cars. Anyhow, he learned to go onto YouTube and find the other language versions, and he would watch the same movie in the other languages. Japanese, Spanish, and I'm watching him in amazement. And I'm not going to ask him, do you understand? Because he does understand. He's already chronicled it in English, and now he's doing it in Spanish. And that's without parental push in any way. So all we've got to do is find the tools that touch their curiosity, and they will run with it.
Absolutely.
Look at the way some of those young guys can name every ball play and their batting average and how many hits they have, and yet they can't seem to remember things that they're taught in the classroom.
All right. So I guess what we're saying, at least from my perspective, is that no matter what the obstacle that you perceive, there is a way around it.
That's right.
And you have to open your mind to the way as opposed to being blinded by the image of the obstacle. All right. It's about that time we take a little break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. All right. WSTX, AM 970, 773-0390, 773-0490. All right, we're back. And once again, the conversation in between is so sweet. So if you see me having to go to the dentist regularly from now on, you know it was just a little bit too much sweet for too short a period of time, and I got to deal with these cavities. But no, seriously now, folks. We've got Gloria Joseph, and she's been here talking about this book, Win the Spirit, Life, Love, and everything about Audre Lorde. All right? And, of course, she's already had an impact on me because I'm telling everybody your silence will not protect you. I have that seared in my brain now. Your silence will not protect you. There are a lot of other very good and constructive things in there. Whenever you see oppression and you are told that you should wait and follow this procedure and that procedure, and it's just not working, not working. Don't be masochistic and keep following the procedures that don't work. Always remember that the master's tools will not be used to dismantle the master's house. All right. That's how I got it.
All right.
All right. So
There
come
you
back
go.
to you. So, am I a good student? Do I get a good grade?
A plus.
Okay. Thank you much.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned being a good student because, Gloria, besides being a prolific author, she is definitely an educator of many, many years at various levels of education. So maybe, not a lot of people know that she is the grand niece of St. Croix philanthropist Casper Holstein, but in addition to that, she has a stellar career. So maybe she could tell us a little bit about her background and what led her to,
I can
be a
tell by
professor and a
how
writer.
she's quiet and
I
watching
know,
you.
I
She's going to
know.
make sure that the next time she's going to have an introductory paragraph or two that you're going to do so she can get off the hook from talking about
I know
these things.
she's so modest. But
Yes, it's amazing. Are you shy even?
No.
Oh,
no.
you sure
No.
good putting on a good
Well,
show here.
when the spirit hits me, if I feel there's a great injustice, there's a whole different
All right.
approach to life.
Good.
But in
Okay.
terms of education, let me start with just a simple statement that, change does not take place through prayer or meditation. It takes place through action. So you have to be active about it. People have been talking for years of what we can do with education, and we're still at the same level pretty much with children being uneducated. And there's absolutely no reason why Johnny cannot read. And people say, I don't know if many of you remember Mamie Clark, and they did the very famous doll study,
right.
where in Kenneth Clark and Mamie, and in addition to doing that doll study, which was very instrumental in the equality in education, during the summer, they ran a school for a reading school. And during the 3 months in the summer, they were able to bring young people's reading level up to grade level. And I remember Ken Clark, he taught at City College. I took a course with him, and he said, the programs and procedures that they use are up on the shelves, and that's where they are gaining dust. They simply are not being used then. The answers that we have to bring about solutions, the reason why they are not fulfilled is because of the powers to be that want to keep the status quo. It has to be a conspiracy against teaching young people to read when they can't read. There's no reason why they can't. When I was in Massachusetts and teaching, I had a grad class, and we had a course. The course was called How to Develop a Alternative School with a Budget of Zero, because many schools start and they fall apart. We called it the Che Lumumba School for Truth. And the city of Amherst was very much afraid, what are these black people doing calling the school a Che Lumumba? They have to come before us before we can sanction them. And we went before that board, and we were so impressed that they actually wanted to use our curriculum. Now, we had students coming from different cities, and they, sent their children there. And those children, no matter what level they were at, they all learned how to read. And not only just read, we would teach English and Spanish. If they were counting in English, they would count in Spanish, etc. So, you know, there's just living proof that every child can be taught to read, math, etc., etc. That's why I say it has to be a conspiracy to stop that, because the tools are there, the methods are there. It's just like, you may know, Paulo Freire with his concept of, it's called consciential. And he was so successful in teaching those Brazilian peasants to read that they had to categorize him and have him removed from his position, even from the country, I believe it was. But he would take key words that were important to the peasants, you know, first revolution, education, and they would key into that, and reading was no problem. See, so all that's just to say, in terms of education, there's no reason why every child should certainly learn how to read. And they also, in the same vein of education, nothing takes the place of travel. I always tell my students, you learn more outside these four walls than you do inside. And along with that, you know, I believe it should be mandatory for every school child to at least take one trip to another country to see what it looks like. You have children in Harlem who haven't been outside of Harlem. I think you've got children here in the Virgin Islands who haven't been to other countries, at least to go to Puerto Rico, at least visit other islands. You know, you have to see the difference in the world. And it makes such a tremendous difference in your knowledge and your learning if you are exposed to something beyond your immediate community. And it can be done. It should be built into the curriculum. Travel has done so much for me. I've traveled just about every continent except Australia, and people say, it does not take money, you find ways. I worked in the, as a Peace Corps selection officer. I also was school psychologist for the American children whose families were stationed in Europe. I spent 2 years in Mannheim, Germany, 1 year in Paris. And another interesting story is how I got Paris, shows you how the system works. I said Paris or home. So after that, I was, you know, my 2 years were up. They sent the chief, one of the top officers in the system, and he came and he took me for lunch, and he said, "You've got Paris." I said, "No, I don't. I resigned." He said, "Forget that. We need a school psychologist, and you're the only one here." He came in flat out and told me. And my job was to administer tests to those students who were exceptionally bright to attend the NATO schools, and those who had mental problems to the extent that they had to be shipped back to the States. They called it compassionate transfer because we didn't have facilities. So I was able to spend a year in France, only because I was prepared, I could do the job, and I was needed. So the powers that be, if they want you, they will figure out a way to keep you. If they don't want you, they can figure out a way to get rid of you. And that's something that we all should know and learn, and not sit back and feel, "Oh, I didn't qualify." You qualified, but they didn't want you in many instances. Or if you didn't qualify, we want you, so they'll put you in a position with nepotism or something like that. But, you know, back to the values of travel, when I was there, it was the Rome Olympics, and we got a chance to see the Olympics and actually stay in the Vatican. I have all these experiences as a result of travel. We stayed in the Vatican because they were building shelters or places for the Americans to stay. They didn't finish the building, so we had to stay in the Vatican. And I'll never forget, we would come up to 3 or 4 of us, and the Swiss guards were there, and we would say, you know, it sounded like a magical word, and they'd let us in. Always say it was Santa Maria, because that was the name of the area we were sleeping in, you know. But it was a wonderful experience. We were able to, you know, see the Vatican, you know. So all these experiences come as a result of travel. When I was in France, at Paris, I went to see the last time Les Scales, that's those caves with the writing on them, and they had to close it because the air was ruining it. I was able to see that. And just the point is, travel is essential to learning, and it just broadens your knowledge of other people in the world, you know. And another example of my travel was Some of you may know, and others may not know, but I was the, like I say, the queen bee. We ran an apiary, a beekeeping association I had here in St. Croix. And Sadiq, he was a bee master. Unfortunately, he passed away, and it was, let's see, Howard Francis and Curtis Sandy. We had a bee collective, and we provided the best honey throughout the island. We had over 100 hives, you know. And as a result of that, went on a beekeeper's tour to China. And Sadiq and I were with all these white beekeepers who had, you know, hundreds and hundreds of hives, and they would ship them from one place to the other as the weather changed. And these are wealthy people, and Sadiq said to me, they want to know, you know, about our background. And Sadiq said, well, I told them Dr. Joseph is independently wealthy. Little as they know.
Oh, yeah.
So
wealth isn't always.
But there's another reason, another example of travel, if you are in the right place at the right time, was I've been to Cuba 4 different times. One was for education, the other was a group of black women writers, and the third was, it's a little interesting, but I think it's amusing, there's a group called the Sullivanites. They follow the teachings of Harry Stack Sullivan. And at that time, I was familiar with some of the Cuban officials, and they wanted someone to escort this group of Sullivanites, and they called me. So I worked, and that was my 3rd trip to Cuba. So, you know, if you're in the right place at the right time, if you're prepared, I used to tell my students, you know, when you're filling out applications, even if you don't have it, you know, all that they want, at least you can say, you know, well, I can prepare myself for what you want to do, you see. So if you're prepared, so that's just some of my, I could talk also about South Africa, going to South Africa. That was great. I actually met with Winnie Mandela in her office, traveled through all the shacks in the slums, you know. Great trip. You want me to talk more about that? You asked me to talk about travel.
And I want you to talk about it, but let me just stick a little word in edgewise here. You know, travel is a fantastic influence. And I could see a lot of our young people who might find themselves getting in trouble just for the lack of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things that happens here is like we have technology that can complement the fact that we may be able to take 100 people on some form of travel, but we'll have thousands who will never go.
Mm-hmm.
And what we could do is, let's say, make the opportunity to go more competitive. And we come back to education, why Juanita can't read.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the fact of the matter is, when we have these VINGN game houses that kids can come to after school, if the password to get in is to be able to answer a question out of this section of this book, they will read.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to be creative in terms of bridging the gap, because by getting them to read, that's one step. But now we take these same game centers and we now connect to the ones in St. Thomas or a sister school somewhere in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're already paying for the internet, so it's not like it costs you anything more. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a special event. Now we have connections with Denmark, but we're not doing this type of thing with Denmark. Not that we want to or don't want to, but I'm just saying that we've got to take this thing called technology and bridge the gap. Because we just matched the $70 million from the federal government so that we could have this whole system called VINGN that allows for us to do all of these things. And we have centers that aren't properly manned to be able to use this millions of dollars worth of investment.
It's criminal.
And it is kind of criminal. If there's such a thing as kind of, it is kind of criminal. But it's just food for thought of how much we have, but yet we're behaving as though we're blinded by the obstacle that we can't see all that we have. So that's a challenge that I find, how to get people to see what they have. But anyhow, talking about travel, talking about South Africa.
Yes, as I earlier mentioned, to bring about change and activism, and I'm definitely an activist. And when I was teaching at Hampshire, I was showing a film called the women in South Africa had made a film to show it was called Awake from Mourning. They had been mourning over the massacre of the children in Soweto, and they said, no, we're going to awake from mourning and do something beyond mourning and establish an organization that will help the oppressed people in South Africa. And I was at Hampshire College, and looking at that film, it showed these young people who needed maybe literally $10 or $15 to go to higher education. They were the pensioners whose money would run out before the month was over. So, and there's two women's self-help groups called the Maggie McGarvey Trust and the Soweto, the women from Soweto. Okay, so we had these two self-help groups. So looking at that film and thinking of these wealthy students at Hampshire College who $15 nothing, they were just spending on cigarettes, candy, on nothing, drugs, whatever. So I said, we gotta channel some of this wealth to help these people. So I just took a salty can and put a the women's studies group are having this big, luncheon, and I came with my little coffee pot collection, and I'll never forget, oh, Gloria, you can't be serious all the time about everything. Well, this was not something that you think about once in a while. Apartheid was at its peak. So I said, look, I'm not going to bother with these white feminist groups who think that that you can take time off from thinking about apartheid. And I organized a group called Sisters in support of the sisters in South Africa. And I selected 5 women whom I knew had my same interest, and we got a board of directors. We had key people like Sonia Sanchez and Angela Davis who were on the board, and we gave talks, fundraising. The money we gathered, we sent directly to these two self-help groups, the Zamani Soweto Sisters and the Maggie McGarvey Trust. We followed that up with, I took a trip there with one of my students who worked for Third World Newsreel, and we did an hour-long video of it, and we took that money to those women, and it's just so touching. And they said, no matter what you give us, it's so important what we can do. And it was helped used to establish a center for the women in South Africa to learn, their knitting skills, sewing, even brick making.
A thread that runs through all that you're saying is that sometimes we just never know how much we have. And we need to stop saying how much we don't know what we have and educate.
Mm-hmm.
Because if great minds could come out of Soweto with all that's going on there,
mm-hmm.
in the history of oppression, there's no reason why great minds can't flourish here when we have so much.
Right.
Anyhow, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll be back. All right, we're back, and I've just been so entranced by this personality I have here in front of me in the name of Gloria Joseph, who is here talking about all kinds of stuff. First of all, we started off talking about the wind, the spirit, the life, love, and legacy, and a whole lot more of Audre Lorde. All right, and we were having a great conversation there. Of course, all of this, except for the little part that maybe where WAPA had a little glitch for a minute there, is going to be on YouTube for those who weren't able to join us at this particular time. But this book is called a bio-anthology, and it's a bio-anthology as I have been educated today because of the 50 people, and we're dealing exact numbers, not 51, right? Sure, okay. 50 people who have through their perspective, contributed to this book about the life, love, and legacy of Audre Lorde. And then we kind of segued into travel as a vehicle in education, expanding the mind. And we've been talking about Gloria Joseph herself in her own right and some of her experiences. And now we're coming full circle. The train doesn't have to stop and back up. The tracks run all the way around. We're coming full circle back to the book launch and signing of The Wind is Spirit, The Life, Love, and Legacy of Audre Lorde. Tuesday, April 26, 2016, there's going to be a program at 5:30 p.m. where you can join at the Beachside Café in Frederiksted for the St. Croix book launching. Right? Your opportunity to get a copy, to have it notarized. Sign is too simple. Notarized.
This is big.
By Gloria Joseph. Okay. But it's definitely, from everything that I have heard in this conversation, an amazing bio anthology written by Gloria Joseph, and it pays tribute to the profound legacy of Audre Lorde. The one thing that in this short period of time, you read some of the sayings that can be heard, uttered around the world from time to time by various voices, from insignificant to those who are outstanding in the community. I call it insignificant because if you say it and nobody hears it, to echo it on. But one of them stuck with me. So in that sense, you have done myself and I believe the community a great service today just by being here to talk about this book and these sayings that come out of her mouth. Now, when you hear, I have a dream, there's a vision that comes into your mind out of those words, I have a dream. In this case, you see a man, you see him at a pulpit, you see him standing before a crowd, and you see him orating to a electrified group of people out there. Right? And in that same way, some of these sayings that you read for us, how should I put it? Just stimulate the mind. That's the best way to put it. Stimulate the mind. And the one that I keep repeating because it is equally relevant. Folks, on any level, in everything that should not be, and where the truth and what should be does not come out of your mouth, remember, your silence will not protect you. Your silence will not protect you. So, for that alone, I thank you because I'm going to be repeating that. I really disdain, don't like, hate, or otherwise have no use for this concept called the no snitch principle that has just come into our community and opened it up to these people who come in as predators to take advantage of us. Because somebody is being quiet when somebody saw. And in this day and age of, we have, what's the name of our group here that we can call up and give information to?
Crime Stoppers.
Crime Stoppers. All of a sudden you have a vehicle that you can talk through without showing your face or leaving your fingerprints. You have the mail, you know, if you want to do something anonymously, but speak. Whether anonymously or whether you step forward to be identified, if you do not speak up, remember, your silence will not protect you. Okay? All right. So, anyhow, it's one of those things we have to keep coming back to and talk to these young people because our young people are like fertile ground. If the weeds take root, the weeds will grow. We have to make sure that we pick the weeds and plant the trees that will bear fruit, protect us, otherwise give us shelter. Not let the weeds run rampant. So we definitely have to make sure that we play that role. Now I'm going to read a little bit about the poster that we have here for this book launching. And it says that the Caribbean American Black feminist poet laureate Audre Lorde. This book about her weaves stories, memories, and photographs from 50 contributors, including Sonia Sanchez, Angela Davis, Assata Shakur, and 12 Virgin Islanders. At this book launch, there will be drumming, refreshments, readings from the book by local authors, book sales, and signing. Equally important, it will be your opportunity to see in person Dr. Gloria Intelligentsia Joseph.
For free.
For free. Okay. And I say that things happen in a funny way. I went to Washington, D.C. And I was invited to go to a church. Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis were there. And Ossie Davis told a story. And that man is a master storyteller in his own right. We're accustomed to seeing him on TV, doing the movie evaluations and other roles that he's played on TV. But this guy told a story. He could sit right alongside the Doc Petersons and the Bully Petersons and have everybody afraid to go home afterwards. All right? And so in that sense, I say to folks, come on out. Meet, see, hear Gloria Joseph, friends, colleagues, folks of concern that have come out for this book launching and to participate. It is, in that context, an experience that I feel like the one I went to with Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, both no longer with us. It can touch your spirit. Come on out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the Come On Out will be next Tuesday, April 26th, starting at 5:30. And I wanted to mention some of the local contributors.
Don't forget Beachside Café.
Beachside Café, which is at Sandcastles on the beach. All right, and some of the and we do thank them for hosting the event. Some of the local contributors to the book include Winifred Oyoko Lovin, Corinne Hodge, Yamaya Rice Jones, Adjoa Claudette Young Hines, Helga Emd, Opal Palmer Adisa, Leslie Rayner, Melba Matherin, Samuel Raphael, Dr. Chenzera Kahina,
and Cassandra Dunn.
And the
thank you, Gloria.
Of the airways. I want to leave this with you, just like you've left something with me. The songbird of the airways.
Both of you are far too kind. Thank you so much. But you know, it was a privilege to not only have known Audre and have her as a sister, but certainly to be included in this bio anthology.
All right, fantastic. It's really been a pleasure for me having you here and having this conversation and having it memorialized. And I'm going to sue Wappa. You know how we could sue them for mashing up our fridge?
Yes.
And everything else? I'm going to sue Wappa because a certain part of this conversation may be forever lost.
I have no comment at this time.
Well, you know, some things it depends. It's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all a matter of perspective because in growing up here, I remember the days of WAPA. If we think that in the last 10 years, the things that we've travailed, and it used to be worse, and then it got really, really good. And if you want to see how it was, you'll go to St. Thomas. All right, so now it's gotten to the point where if power goes off, I tell people that's a treat, okay? Because peace and quiet.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
no TV. That's a treat. That's the way I choose to look at it. I can't let the blood pressure go up.
That's right.
I can't talk and complain about something I have no power
control.
over.
That's right.
You can't
So
control
I
it.
take it as a treat and let it otherwise embellish my life in a positive
Yeah.
way. Right?
Very
And one of these days they'll get really, really stingy and stop giving out treats.
There you go.
All right. So a different perspective.
Yes. Yes.
Life is to be lived, and life is to enjoy. And once you focus on that, you're on the right track. Once you lose sight of that, you're definitely off the beaten path that you need to be on.
Yeah.
And we're here at you've been having such a great time. I don't even know if you realize how long you've been here, and I don't want you to realize because, but for the fact that they have to run us out of here, I don't want to let you go. I'm enjoying this, but I'm hoping that in the process that this will be something for folks to reflect on as an inspiration to write, to document, to otherwise preserve some aspect of their life, some aspect of someone else's life who has made an impact in their life, because one of the weaknesses in our culture has been there's a word, the memorialization, making some memorial in culture, because the spoken word, the day when you have generations of people who are dedicated to telling the history of the village over hundreds of years, we've long gone past that point. A lot of kids grow up, they don't want to stay in the village anymore, much less to have to recite these things and learn these things.
Right.
We move then into other aspects of technology, and what I'll do is I'll put together a DVD of this for you so that you'll have it and can reflect on it. And if I said anything here today that is otherwise out of place and out of regard, that you can chastise me later on after the fact. That's what I love about technology. It holds us all accountable, but in a most positive way.
Because I just have to say that, we have to tell the stories to offset the miseducation of black people. That's why in the book that I did that Gloria wrote, it talks about the contributions of black people in so many areas. And this one story just keeps in my mind when we talk about educating the young people today, and how every school should have a course in terms of black contributions. Because when you have, and this happened very recently in a classroom when they said, who was Martin Luther King? And the way you described him, this young child raised his hand and was proud to say, he freed the slaves. Now that's what our children today know about Martin Luther King. He freed the slaves. It's beyond being humorous. It's pathetic. It's sad. It's a result of the education system. As you were describing what Martin Luther King for, all I could think of is the greatness of that man, and these children don't even know his contribution.
And if you don't know, it's hard for you to have expectations and aspirations that are somehow going to take you and lift you above and beyond. You have to have some type of a reference to know. And you said miseducation. I want to say for the record that for me, miseducation also includes no education. And when I said no education, the fact of the matter is we're learning reading, writing, arithmetic, but we're not learning about who came up with these great principles of math in what parts of the world and in what dynasties and so forth, and that we can look at these things and take, how should I put it, pride in the context of building self-esteem and building in the community. The one thing that sometimes we lose touch of is that diversity is the goal, not something you just came from, but it is the goal, because there is, I should say, put it another way, there are riches in diversity.
Oh, absolutely, that's what.
And we all have to be equally represented in this diversity.
and that's what this book talks about.
All right, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic.
Great.
Okay, you know we have of course the discussion that's going on out there, one way and back and forth about all lives matter versus black. There's no versus.
Truth.
If you want to look at any part of the rainbow, it matters.
It does.
Sure.
So focusing on any given one point, that's just the treat of the day, of the minute, of the hour. Because when it comes down to it, and you track all the genetics, it all goes back together. So once we can root out the oppression and miseducation and be able to, in diversity, all stand equally represented.
Yeah.
You know, there are those who want that to never happen.
But you also have to, I say, along with Black Lives Matter, the quality of life also matters, because you can have, you know, just look at a person, you know, homeless, ill, you know, diseased. What kind of, if his life matters in that condition, so you have to also add the quality of your life.
Quality of life.
You know, is equally as important.
It's equally as important, and that's why we come back to this diversity, because quality of life is not one person, black, Hispanic, white, Asian. This is everybody.
Right, the economics.
And we've got to cross that bridge to the everybody land, not one versus the other. That's not how you build. Yeah, I love growing up in St. Croix. I've definitely enjoyed my childhood here, and see how much I miss in terms of the Caribbean, that I'm now on this wild goose chase, hopefully to find the holy grail of seeing it all. But nonetheless, the struggle goes on.
Absolutely.
Ms. Joseph, I want to thank you so much for the time that you spent here with me today and graced us, meaning the community, with your thoughts on both the book, The Wind is Spirit. Everyone, this coming Tuesday, April 26th, at Beachside Café in Frederiksted, there is going to be a book launching for The Wind is Spirit, The Life, Love, and Legacy of Audre Lorde. The author, Gloria Intelligentsia Joseph, will be there to sign
PhD.
your copy, as well as many Virgin Islands authors are going to be there to read selections from the book, as well as other authors. It's something you have to see. It is an experience. It's a historical. Bring the young people out so that they can witness this. And know that when I write my book, I'm talking about that child that you bring, when they say, I write that book, I'm going to have a ceremony, a gathering, something like this to memorialize that launch.
Absolutely.
Amen.
So we'll look to see you.
Yes, most
Thank
definitely. And again, thank you for all this time.
You're
All
more
the
than
time that
welcome.
I had to somehow convince myself that I was tricking you into staying this long. But I know you know where you are, and you're here for a purpose, and I'm just letting you know I enjoyed it. Okay, so folks,
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Straight Talk with the other Holland Redfield is very interesting. Tell him to go on vacation more often. No, not really. Hurry up and come back, Holland. You can have your seat.